Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the HarmonicDyne Devil. So we are going to go through this one quickly. This one has a tuning which is really tilted towards a small group of users. It has a price that's $200, and that's also going to narrow down the number of users or listeners who are interested in this set. So I'll say that I actually liked it probably more than other people do, but I can also acknowledge that it's a super risky purchase. It's a lot of money. It's a tuning that's not going to appeal to a wide range of people. So we'll kind of step through it quickly, but this is how it comes. It's actually a very nice, this actually kind of folds down. You get HarmonicDyne on the top, shells, a little metal with a serial number on it, case, cable tie, 2 packs of ear tips. So actually very nice. I think we'll look at this one. So the shells themselves are actually super nice looking. These are not super polished metal, but not matte. It's actually sort of an in-between satin finish. It's actually quite nice. Tips, they actually get 2 sets of kind of wide bore tips. I actually like the white set more than the black set for some reason. And, another third reason why people are going to be a little risky on this one, MMCX. So lots of non-MMCX fans out there, but this one, that's how they shipped it, so that's what it is. But super nice shells. I have to admit that the build quality is top-notch. It looks like $200. The case looks like $200 and all that, but, sort of at the end of the day, it still has to sound nice, and it's got to appeal to some people with wide-ranging tastes, and this one, kind of. So let's kind of start with the graph, and kind of right away, so the stock version is the purple one, and kind of right away, this really lean, low bass level is just something that's not going to work for tons of genres. I would call it less than neutral. It is kind of way down there, and that's really going to appeal to people who don't care about bass, almost period. It's just a little below neutral, and when you go that far down, things tend to sound a little off natural. So you combine that, the mids are actually pretty good, but then they rise, and this whole part is slightly bright, so you end up with a lighter bass, a little off natural, up here in the mids, a little brighter, a little off natural again. And then this part actually sounds better than it looks. I think this extension looks like it drops off a cliff and rolls off really early, but because there's no real bass bump, bass boost, it doesn't have to really rise or be boosted above this to hear it. So I think this part actually sounds better than it looks, but again, just looking at the graph, it's sort of like reason number 5. It's just a risky purchase. You kind of look at it, you're like, well, I don't know if this bass level would come close to working for my playlist. It seems a little bright. Maybe that's not going to work for me. Maybe the extension isn't right. There's just a whole host of reasons why this one is a tough sell. But we'll walk through it. And for those of you who may be new to my reviews, if I bold things at the top, that's probably about where you can stop. These are sort of the more important decision points. All the traditional review stuff we'll kind of touch on, but you'd really have to convince yourself that these don't really matter as much to even kind of consider what the rest of it sounds like. So wonderfully colored. As I said, this one is colored in a couple different ways, and if you like a neutral bright sound and maybe more instruments than vocals with a less than natural sound, this one may work for you. It's colored in that way. That lighter bass, a little brighter. Vocals didn't really do it for me, but it's sort of like walking into someone's living room and seeing their TV on Vivid. You kind of look at it and you're like, whoa, that seems kind of off to me. It's kind of super bright and vivid. And then you sit down and let your brain burn in for an hour or two and you kind of get used to it. That's exactly what this one sounds like. It's kind of bright and boosted in ways that you're not traditionally used to, but it kind of comes across in a way that's sort of interesting, and I enjoyed listening to it for quite a while. So I can appreciate the tuning intention there and what they maybe were trying to achieve. It's kind of neutral bright, but the tuner probably likes classical music, music fan, and that's really what pops on this set. Like I said, the vocals were kind of oddball on it, but the instruments, the way they pop, especially on a dual 10 millimeter dynamic driver. It's very, very interesting to actually listen to and how he executed this. So feels colored in a way to enhance, kind of like Vivid Mode, like I said. About as close to a dynamic driver tuned like a balanced armature as I've ever heard. It's really wild, right? When you turn down the bass that much and you're just left with the mids and the treble, and they kind of come across, with this dual setup, it actually comes across more like a balanced armature, plus it's a little brighter, and it almost kind of resembles BA timbre. Yeah, it's kind of wild. Like, you kind of think that, why do they go through all this trouble, spend all this time tuning a dynamic driver to sound like a balanced armature? They probably should have just used balanced armatures if that's what the sound signature they were going for. But they really shifted the emphasis up range, which is not typical for dynamic driver. It just works here. Like I said, it sounds a little better than it graphs, but again, it's just kind of an oddball thing. The clarity and stage really work well here, and quite good for a dynamic driver, or two dynamic drivers in this case, with slightly bright tuning. It could have gone really horribly wrong in the stage area, and this one actually is very, very good. I think the imaging in the stage pretty much save this set and make it something unique. So what didn't go as well? Kind of off-colored. That tuning, the light bass level, the higher vocals are all genre limiting. It's really hard to kind of thread the needle as to who would use this set and enjoy it. What type of music would they listen to? The clear, vivid strings works here, but the same tuning takes vocals off natural, and that was the part that really kind of drove me crazy. Not going to work for any genre that needs a mid bass also. Like I said, that bass level pretty much flat. There really isn't any mid bass there to drive your tunes. Female vocals have a bit more sibilance due to the tuning. Like I said, it's just a little bit brighter in that area, and they tend to catch a little more sibilance than what you might be expecting at $200. So who should buy it? And this is the final question, right? At $200 with a genre limiting tuning, matching users to this set is super, super hard. I don't even know who they are, but it is a very hard match, and it has some really nice parts, and we'll get into those right now, but really not enough to overcome the risk that you would take by spending $200 against all these things that sort of work against a recipe for success for a set that you're about to buy. So sound, neutral bright, but that bass level is just a bit under neutral, like I said. It's very much an upper range specialist. The bass, kind of really minimal support for the mids. It's just really a bit too light. It will appear on demand, but even with classical, the bass is just a bit too light. The bass needs to be far down on your priority list to really kind of consider this tuning, or put Micropore tape on it, on the vent, and you'll be in a bassier zone where you can get a really taste of the potential that's actually sitting here. It's two 10 millimeter dynamic drivers, right? It should actually do quite a bit of bass, and it should actually do it well. And if you actually put Micropore tape on it, you sort of get a taste of what that sounds like, and it actually sounds pretty good. So, like I said, the purple was in stock, and that's probably about 3 dB, about right there. So you put some Micropore tape on that front, on this little vent, which is about right there. Use Micropore tape so you get some airflow through it. That's going to give you about 5 dB of bass, and then you're kind of in the ballpark of other popular sets. Again, you're spending $200, so I did it just to try it because I knew it was going to sound a little bit better. But yeah, I think you get a real taste of what it can sound like. There's a lot of potential there, but they just really kind of tuned it a bit too low. So the mids, what works here is that even brightness, clarity, and stage. And like I just showed on the graph, the mids through the treble, this whole bit right here, we're sort of expecting it to be a little more peaky and uneven and have a bright spot, maybe here, and then it dips down, and then here, and then this rolls off. But you really don't. This whole thing sounds quite even. I haven't quite figured out how they do it, but it's a noticeable evenness to the brightness, and then you get some real clarity because there's no bass and the stage is big. So the whole thing actually works out quite well right in the mids. Lots of sets do bright, but it tends to be peaky or uneven and eventually leading to fatigue, and this one doesn't really go there. Everything that looks on the graph would tell me that it's probably going to be fatiguing, but it actually is not. This one volume scales very well, and not sure I have said that about a bright set ever. I don't know. I can't figure out what exactly they did here that makes the level of brightness, the level of treble that they're using, how it doesn't look as even as it should, how it all works with the volume scaling. It's a little harder to drive, so you do have to turn it up. I don't know. I don't understand how it all works, but it works enough that I actually kept listening to it. And like I said, I actually like this set a lot simply for these couple reasons. It's very different in how it handles volume with that much brightness. Very, very different. I think these guys have some genius tuning in them, but their target is just a little bit off from what would be sort of appealing to the masses. So volume scales very well. The tuning may not be the most natural for vocals, but in the point of view of the tuner, someone who likes classical music, I think this execution is very, very good. It's very different. For a 2 dynamic driver, it narrowly focuses on mids and above, and it sounds like a decent hybrid. Just the tuning won't work for everyone, right? It's really hard to talk about a tuning being very, very good, but then appealing to such a narrow group of people. But that's sort of the mark that this one really hits. Treble, what works here is that low bass, lots of clarity in the mids, and no boost to the treble. Those 3 things kind of give you more of a sense of evenness to the treble than what it appears on the graph. Like I said, it just sounds a little better than a graph. While the graph shows a lower level of extension, there's nothing masking it either, right? There's no mid bass, there's no huge sub bass to really cloud those upper treble, senses of space and things that really affect the stage and airiness. None of that stuff gets clouded up in this tuning, and it actually works out quite well. So no reason to boost it. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of bass. There's no reason to boost it over the bass, so it actually sounds quite natural in that upper treble. Again, it's another one of these things that there's a small bit of genius tuning there that they got right. It's just the overall tuning is pitched towards something a little stranger. But for this reason, not a low volume set either. In order to hear some of that airiness, you definitely need to turn it up. And like I said, you can turn this one up and up and up, and it kind of keeps on going without ever being fatiguing. The mids through the treble is just executed very well. It's almost seamless. Definitely one of the better dynamic drivers, upper trebles at this price point that I've heard. Technically good, but it still needs to sound good, and that's the thing that I kind of keep on harping on is these guys did some amazing tuning. They put together 2 dynamic drivers in a way that showcases something. It's just something in a way that isn't mass appealing. So, it's not really enough to be technically good. You still need to be able to work on other playlists besides the one that you tune to. The stage and imaging really save the set. They're really, really good. And I got stuck on Hames right now. Not a complex song. Female vocals, which I tended to not like at all. Not a fan of her vocal, but the imaging and the clarity and the space and just where the instruments are located in that pinpoint location, the big space that they're in, it all came together as you would expect at this price point. It sounded like a $200 set when you don't focus on some of the things that are off natural here. But so I would really want to fix it with Micropore. Her vocals are better, and you just need a little bit of bottom end to the vocals for them to sound a little more natural. So that wasn't as quick as I was expecting, but there you go. That's what I got on the HarmonicDyne Devil. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.